Can all of you hear me?
Yes, we can. It just takes a long time to unmute.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, everyone.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So it was only me being muted, I guess. So, okay. So I restart. So we have the not well, and we do have the agenda bashing. I'm wondering if anyone is willing to take notes, while Logan handled the brush of volunteers. I'm also asking if anyone has anything he wants to mention on the agenda. I think I see Hendrik. So Hendrik is probably asking for something with a CMP. No, was it the CMP? Well, the CMP draft, I think, in ACE. Any other topic?
I can help with the notes when
Okay.
not.
Wait, I mean, we just be very brief on the notes. I mean, we don't need to have everything. Just the main point, maybe. So, Let's start. So the CMP draft. I think we were expecting a response to the security directorate from Mohit, and I think he did it. So now it's really in the hand of Paul. This is I mean, Paul has everything to do a IETF last call. I'm wondering if there are any actions that the working group is expected to do, or the chairs. Hendrik, do you have any expectation from us?
No special expectation. So just wanted to give a quick background. I think Mohit responded to Paul's comments and said he will submit an update of the draft. I think Paul is waiting for that update, if I got it correct. On the other hand, why am I interested in getting this draft finalized? It is a normative reference in 2 of my documents, which are in the RFC editors queue. And as this is the last dependency that is open, of course, I'm interested in getting the document approved. And I feel like it is ready. And it is ready for more than half a year already. So, I would appreciate things moving forward.
So, as you mentioned, I saw an email from Mohit on the mailing list, but I think he was responding to Valerie's comment, but I don't see the new version on the data tracker. So I will try to follow up with that. I don't think he submitted a new version, so probably address that. But I would try to send an email to respond to Mohit to say probably is waiting a response from Valerie to publish it, but I'm going to say we would like a new version to be published. I take that on my side. Any other comments? No. So maybe let's move to the PubSub profile.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Sigdem. Yeah, we can hear you, Sigdem.
Hi. Unfortunately, I haven't progressed beyond the previous meeting, but I received an email from Marco that there will be some changes to CoAP PubSub in core. Yeah, so it's the same as I last reported.
Okay, so what matters to me is that is there anything that blocks you, or anything I can do for you?
Not really, just that I didn't find the time.
Okay, that I can't do anything about it.
But I will get to it as promised.
Yeah, no problem.
This is
do
Marco.
You see? Go ahead, Marco.
I just put in touch Sigdem and Jaime, and Jaime is, as we speak, actually working on the core PubSub document and progressing it. I confirmed Sigdem that I can help, especially on the security side. So if you want to have a chat about that one of these weeks, let's do that. But I am not directly on the core PubSub document.
Thank you. Yes, I have both your emails, so I'll take a look where the updates are planned, and then raise any comments, concerns, or questions I have.
So just a clarification, are we waiting for something in core, or
No, this is just
No.
it was raised before in last meeting that there whether that has stabilized and whether we should keep an eye on it, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, right. Okay, great. what timeline do we expect? Is that next month or in the next 2 months? I mean, just for me
hoping
to
next
get an
month.
idea.
I'm hoping next month.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Because most of my blockers are going to be resolved within 1 or 2 weeks. So.
Oh, okay, right.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect. And as soon as you need help, just contact us. Us meaning anyone that can help.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, right. So now I think we are leaving the floor to Marco.
Sure. On revoke token notification, well, I started working on it for the next revision. You can already see some relatively small updates on the GitHub. But big things are still to come. I confirm I expect a version for the cutoff, hopefully to be ready for working group last call after that, so around IETF 116.
Okay, so that's perfect.
Just work in progress.
Okay, perfect.
On Oscar GMadmin, I have an actual presentation.
Okay, so do you want to take the
yes, I've
present?
just requested the
okay,
the slide sharing. I think you have to yeah, you need to relinquish the screen sharing first, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or otherwise my request cannot write. So let me try again.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Now you should.
But I don't see your slide either.
Well, they should be available on Miteco. But right now I've just asked permission to share. You don't even see that request?
Oh, no, I don't see that. Maybe that's Logan. Do you see that?
Well, we have a fallback. Otherwise, I can share my screen.
I'm not seeing your presentation. Sorry.
So when you look at Marco's label in the queue, there is something that looks like an A4 page with a hand on it. You have to click that.
Okay. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, so grant preload slides.
That's right. And here I see it. And here we go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Carsten. I was looking at the chat. So.
Okay, so this is an update on the GMadmin document. And to recap, this document considers the group manager supportive of the group OSCORE protocol and defines a RESTful interface at the group manager for administrators so that they can create, reconfigure, delete the OSCORE groups run by that group manager. And right now, and for a while, actually, the document can be used considering link format and plain CBOR or otherwise Coral. And the organization of the interface and the management resources at the group manager is pretty simple. There's a single instance of a group collection resource. And for each existing OSCORE groups at the group manager, there is one child resource, a group configuration resource, including as its representation, a description of how the group works and is configured. So it's pretty clear that the administrator responsible for the group management acts as ACE client here. The group manager is the resource server. And of course, we have an authorization server responsible mostly for issuing access token. Yeah, this view at a glance should further clarify. The administrator can specifically interact with the group collection resource in the first place to retrieve the list of existing OSCORE groups, bottom line, or to create a new one with a post. And when that happens, that results in creating a new child resource for the corresponding group configuration. And after that, that group configuration resource can be accessed in order to retrieve the configuration of the group altogether or selectively, to update the configuration altogether or selectively, or to delete the group altogether. Right, the last version was presented almost 1 year ago in Vienna, where a lot of feedback and good comments came up. And I think what we have now actually addresses all those comments that we discussed in Vienna. But we basically have 2 more versions since then, one for the July cutoff and one for the November cutoff. So I'll just go through the major changes that happened since March last year. So the update from versions 5 to version 6, and especially what in this slide has been the major update. We have been used AIF for a while, also in this document, to model the permissions intended for administrators. But before Vienna last year, we used to have a separate dedicated AIF data model defined and used in this document. And especially based on input and discussions we had with Christian, we realized that it is actually sufficient to have one single AIF data model, which is already defined in the other document, KeyGroupCom OSCORE, which instead focuses on the group members. So starting from that data model defined in KeyGroupCom OSCORE in the interest of group members, that data model is now just inherited and extended in this document, also to express, as we mean here, permissions for administrators. So overall, we still have a scope encoding information with AAF in terms of scope entries as a pair of identifier and permission set. Now, the permission set hasn't changed. It's really about using flags to indicate what an administrator can do on a certain group or set of groups, and also the specific operations have not changed. But we have changed the TO ID identifier. It used to be a simple text string indicating a group name pattern. Now, following again suggestions, especially from Christian, now the TO ID can be 3 different things. If it's a simple text string, it indicates exactly one group name as a literal. If it's the simple value true, it's a wildcard, so whatever name works. But since we still want to enable group name patterns as well, you can do that by tagging any CBOR item, though we expect to tag specifically a text string practically, with the tag that would indicate the semantics of that pattern. For example, you can go for the already existing tag indicating that you are expressing a pattern using a regular expression. So to recap now, we have a single AF data model aligned with the one defined in KeyGroupCom, OSCORE, that you can also use to specify permissions for administrators. And there's also a nice side thing. For every permission expressed for administrators, the least significant bit in TPERM is always 1, while for scope entries related for group members, again, in the same data model, the least significant bit in TPERM is always 0. So you can quickly distinguish the 2 different types of scope entries by means of that bit, which means that you can issue a single access token granting to the same ACE client, of course, permissions to act under the same group manager as administrators for some group and as group member for others, which is pretty efficient. Okay, that said, we had to revise a bit some details in the interaction between the parties, mostly considered what I showed in the previous slide. And we also considered all the operations exported by the group manager for administrator, and we categorized them as mandatory, as optional to support. And this is in the same exact spirit that we considered from comments from Joran, I think, on previous reviews of the KeyGroupCom 2 documents on providing this categorization that now is happening here too. We added one more parameter that the administrator can specify when creating a new group as requesting the group manager, provided that the group manager supports this altogether. to perform a recycling of group identifiers in the created OSCOR group, which is an optional feature defining group OSCOR. And finally, we used to have quite a long amount of text in the document body describing how the authorization server was supposed to check the token request from the ACE client against related access policies in case a group name pattern was involved. We decided to move that text to an appendix as just an example of how that comparison process can work, while like in the ACE framework RFC, the process about that in the document body is very limited, short, and kept at a high level. Okay, and that was around July. After that, one more revision happened. And there, the major update was about aligning the use of an optional feature already defined in the KeyGroupCom document, but in principle available for any application or profile of ACE. It is now possible to optionally tag the scope claim in an access token to give upfront and explicit indication to the resource server about the semantics considered in that token. We used to do that in a certain way, again, out of suggestions from Christian. That changed, and just focusing on the new way, now you can simply tag the CBOR by string transporting the scope with the tag indicating the semantics used for that scope. So this may have the downside of, in principle, opening for many registration of CBOR tags, but there should be plenty of available space for that. And on top of that, thanks to the work done in the FileMagick RFC mentioned here, often you may not even need to do the registration explicitly. And including in this case, we are just going to build on a CBOR tag that is going to be automatically registered out of the registration of a co-op content format related to the defined AF data model. This is anyway an optional feature, and the point of this update was just align the possible use that this draft makes of it to the general definition from ACE KeyGroupCom. We also define one more error code to be included in a response payload from the group manager. And like we did for other error code, we gave guidelines for the administrators on how to react in case that error comes back. And yeah, again, aligned with what happened in the previous revision for operations, we considered parameters in this iteration, classifying those as mandatory or optional to support. Again, following feedback from Joran. And then, of course, the editorial and IANA related fixes that can never miss, that should be also stable now. So that's where we are. And this is the next steps I can imagine, and a roadmap if you want to. So thinking also in terms of priority, we have in mind to add some more text giving guidelines on how multiple administrators for a same OSCOR group can coexist, which is functionally possible, but I think it's worth giving some more guidelines. For example, about informing a primary administrator about what other second-class administrators might have done on a certain OSCOR group. And we need to extend the security considerations that right now are really limited to one paragraph only. If we move forward, it's about points related to Coral. So as I mentioned, this can work either with a link format and plain CBOR or with Coral instead. With reference to the Coral part, I found a few things that require to be clarified a bit better. Also in the examples are a bit too terse. And I'd really like now to convert all the examples we give for Coral to use not the obsoleted textual notation like they do right now, but rather the expected CBOR diagnostic notation with the additional use of packed CBOR that should really be the norm now, I think. So as I mentioned, I hope for the cutoff to be able to address points 1 and 2 fully, and points 3 and 4 as much as I can. But then there is point 5 that I wanted to start to raise today, and I hope we can reach consensus about that at the next IETF meeting. It's something I mentioned in the past to Daniel already, that seemed to sympathize with the proposal here, but for everyone to be aware of, I think we are reaching a point where the work on Coral as a document in the co-working group can delay the progress of this document, because more time is required by the Coral document to be completed. But still, this document in ACE is self-standing if focused on link format and CBOR only. So my proposal would be to split this document into two, where document 1 would be what we have today after removing all the parts related to Coral. And that's the document that we can finalize during this year and ship. Document 2 instead would be a new, hopefully working group document from the start as the result of the split, including the parts related to Coral, and of course building a sort of textual framework around it so that it's a readable document that in due time would probably update this document as an RFC. We can put document 2 in a freezer and resurrect it when Coral is done or close to be done. So we don't need to take a decision now, I believe, but I just wanted to start raising this with the hope that we can take a decision in the March meeting. But of course, any feedback, anytime is welcome. And this is my last slide, I think. Thank you.
I think it's we should take a decision as early as possible. So I'm wondering if I thought we already took a decision. So
no, I talked about this with you and a few other people informally, but it's the first time we really raise it at the working group meeting.
So I suspect we will have to have an email on that. Especially the thing I was a little bit worried is that if in 2 years you come with a document, we need to be able to show some evidence that we agreed that a Coral specific document needs to be adopted. So is there anyone thinking that we should do otherwise? So the current question is, with that document, does it sound reasonable to everyone that we do not provide examples in Coral, but we stay with what we have, and then when Coral is stabilized, we do update, we do maybe a BIS document or something with a Coral? Or should we wait for Coral and we don't have any idea on when Coral is going to be finalized? So anyone has any strong feelings?
You're on here. I think this is straightforward, and I don't have any objection here. So please split out the Coral related parts for now, and I don't have a strong opinion how we handle that when Coral is available. So, but I think the important thing is that we progress this draft.
Yeah, Daniel, I was explicitly proposing a document 2 to be submitted and put in the freezer just to have it as a placeholder to not forget about this and bring it up again and progress it in due time.
Yeah, okay. So I think I am going to send an email saying this is we decided to split that document, and And can you send a document for that as early as possible, so we can, I mean, maybe today, so that we can combine the call for adoption with that one, or?
The split is not at all straightforward. That's
Okay.
why I also had this timeline in mind. Intentionally, the Coral parts now are really blended. So that's why I wanted to address points 3 and 4 anyway. It would benefit for the future, but then it will take some effort to do a split in a clean way. So that's why I was thinking for after IETF-116.
So just send me the name of the document that it's gonna be put in the freezer.
Okay, it may well be in Oscorgem admin Coral, if it's not too long.
Okay. Yeah,
yeah, about the detail you mentioned before, for what is worth, I think there would appropriately be an update, not really a base, just a personal take.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, that's but just so we have something that we can reference in a later discussion, probably when it's going to be called for adoption or revived. You never know.
On this other detail you also mentioned before, of course it's up to you and Logan to decide if we have to go through a separate adoption call. What I saw as precedents in other working groups is that if it's about splitting some, especially very advanced working group document, the resulting new document is submitted from the start as a working group document. So it doesn't necessarily require an adoption call if you think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, for more transparency, I think, I mean, of course, anyone opposing to that needs to have strong arguments, but yeah, it's more to give a period for anyone saying its opinion. I don't want that to. I don't see that as a huge constraint. I don't think I think 2 weeks is fine, and everyone is going to be aware of what we're doing. It's more to have that period. It's
yeah. In terms of timeline, again, I prefer to prioritize the first points here, and I can imagine to put some effort to do a clean split after 116.
Honestly. Yeah. Sure. No problem.
But that's the plan.
Yeah. No. But that's fine. I mean. Okay. Any question? Any comments? I'm hearing none. So maybe we can move to key group com OS core now. Is Rickard?
Yeah, I don't have news from last time, but I'll leave it to Rickard. Thanks.
Yes. So hello. Yeah. So I'm the
Hi,
shepherd. Rickard. Yes, I'm the shepherd for this document, and well, let me just give a short update. So I haven't submitted the shepherd write-up, that's in progress, and along with that, a review of the document. And essentially, my plan is to finalize that during this week, so I can send it out and upload the write-up. Well, latest Monday next week, so in 1 week's time.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul was suggesting to have some another call for adoption for the 2 documents. I think, I mean, I had the impression that very few people were thinking it was a good idea, but I don't know if Paul has changed his mind. So we will have to check that. But has anyone anything to say regarding that we should carry to Paul, or is anyone thinking it's a good idea, or it is something we should do?
Marco here. I don't remember Paul asking for that. In the mail exchange you started with him, Daniel, you mentioned the need or not need for a working group last call, actually. And yeah, that came as a surprise to me. I don't know if that's needed. I don't think so.
Yeah, same for me. So okay, so well, I mean, what I have in mind is that once we ship that to Paul, he's going to maybe trigger a last call for both of the documents, and then those documents do not need any actions within the working group. That's my that's how I think, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, Ricard, as soon as we get it, we probably have more information on what's Paul is thinking.
Yeah.
And that would be good. So as soon as we have, we can ship that to Paul and get his reactions.
Yep. Sounds good. Sounds good.
From my side, as soon as I get the review from Ricard, I can take it into account for the next revision. That is already incorporating in the editor's copy on GitHub some small fixes. So I suppose we ship the upcoming next revision.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. But Ricard, did you find anything that needs to be? I mean, strong things that need to be, that makes the revision being
no, I wouldn't say
no.
so.
Okay.
Not really. No.
So
Not,
don't
nothing
find
major
anything
like that. Well, nothing. I don't have the. Well, I found some. I don't have the. I didn't prepare any like stuff for this meeting. But like, if you ask anything major, no, it's nothing that would like mean some kind of significant large amount of work for the revision that I would see. No.
Okay, so that's great. So Marco, I think when we have this shepherd, I mean, try to address those as soon as possible so that we can ship that to Paul. I'd like to have that by the end of the month, so that, I mean, you don't get overload with the next IETF, and that if there is anything that can be discussed, we can use I mean, the time before the IETF, and then eventually have a meeting, a discussion during the IETF maybe. So so that's how I see things.
Sounds very good.
Okay, good. Next presentation, Garan.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I sent in the slides late, so I don't think you have uploaded them.
Okay, now I see your grant screen, so I'm going to provide you the screen.
Right, so let me do that.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Good. Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so this I asked to give some input here, ask for some input here, because this there's been some comments and we have started to think about the next updates. This there is no change since this was adopted. This is still the 0.0 profile of the ad hoc OSCOR profile. So the recap here is that it defines this profile, which is provisioning access rights and an associated asymmetric key to a resource, server, and client. And then it uses ad hoc and OSCOR as security protocol. And then there are a number of different options here, which I'd like to get into in the following slide, on that you can have a very simple flow, and then you can have sort of a lot of optimized flows, or a few optimized flows. And that's basically one of the comments. Another point which is also valid to make here is that you don't need to carry the credential all the time. You can actually have it by reference. So the authentication credential used to authenticate the other party could be, just as in ad hoc, something, just a reference to something. You don't need to carry it both in the authentication flow and in the access token. So here is a, oops, sorry. Just needed to get out of this. Apologies, I'm a little bit confused. Here we are again. So here is a simplified sketch of the state diagram. So if you need, as a client here, you need new access rights starting at the top, then client would contact the AS, the authorization server, with post/token, and get back some access related information from the AS. And this is a vague formulation because we're omitting token provisioning in this figure here. So the token can reach the client and the RS in different ways. And if this is the first time, so there is no OSCOR context valid or no ad hoc session valid, then you would go straight ahead and run ad hoc, which is the bottom box here in the middle, and then you would derive the OSCOR context. And this procedure we could of course apply all the time, but it's not very optimal because then you would need to run ad hoc more than necessary. So for example, if you have now an established ad hoc OSCOR context with an associated access token, and you want to update the access rights, so you start again from the top here, and you get the new access token or access related info. And if then there is a valid OSCOR context, well, then you can basically go to the right there to the upper right blue box where you just post that token using and protect it with OSCOR, and you're done. Or the case that OSCOR context is not valid, but the ad hoc session is valid, then you can run a procedure which is similar to the OSCOR profile, where you include the token and a couple of nonces, and you use the ad hoc key update with those nonces and derive the OSCOR context. So that's one. The general question here is basically, are these options? It's fine to have this set of options here, or should we go for even simpler state diagram? And this is again already simplified as it is. So that's an open question for the working group. And we come back to some comments from Christian in the next slide. As the final comment here is that if you need a new OSCOR security context, now on the left side, then if you had kudos implemented, then you could just run that, and that's completely independent of the access token, really. So that's an alternative flow as well. And if you don't have kudos available, then you would need to either use ad hoc key update or rerun ad hoc. Any questions on this slide? Okay. So then we had some comments from Christian along these lines. So for example, when we do the token provisioning, so that we have two options for this. We have the post authorization info, which is the client, in a separate flow, client and RS. Or we can use the external authorization data of ad hoc, which means it's in line with ad hoc. This is similar to the DTLS profile, that there are two different flows for token provisioning. So I think that, but if you look at the update of access rights, then as we saw, then you actually need to do the post authorization info. Then you are not running ad hoc again if you're just updating the access rights. So I think that we do need to have the different options here. If we have support in the RS for post/authorization info, well, then for update of rights, well, then we might as well use it for the initial rights. Another comment on the same line is if we need to have multiple ways of running ad hoc and OSCORE. So you know that there is this independent flows where you first run ad hoc, then OSCORE, or there is this combined request where you include ad hoc message 3 and OSCORE request. Well, ad hoc message 3 within the OSCORE request. And the question is, can we use that all the time? Do we need to have these double flows, these alternatives? And my answer here is, I haven't really confirmed this with everyone, but I think the answer is no here. We could, it says exclude this option. That's not very well formulated. We could just settle for the combined request, for example, to have that as the only option. And any comment on that? Any idea? So if in terms of examples, there is at the end, in the appendices of the draft, there are examples of doing either the combined request or doing the separate. So those are spelled out in detail. And the question is, do we really need to do both? Or can we say that, can we recommend one, or should we mandate one? So I hear no input here. So maybe there is no major opinion.
Marco here, I was raising my hand. Yeah, it probably really depends on the resource server supporting the combined request in the first place. So if there is no support, it's clearly way better to go for it, and it should happen that way.
It could be a sort of a requirement for, in order to support the ad hoc profile, you must import combined request.
And that would be in line with the fact that we are now mandating support for ad hoc key updates. So, yeah.
Yes.
So either we raise expectations as a baseline, or otherwise I think we need to be flexible and keep it as optional.
Yep. So that's a good summary. And I wonder what we actually go for here. What is preferred here? Is it that we have the different options? I'm just afraid, and I think that's sort of Christian's comments here, that we get too many options. Maybe it's better to require more. I mean, this is not requiring more in terms of power of the device. It's not requiring additional computational power or processing power or battery power. It's just requiring a specific implementation. So maybe that is preferable. Okay, so if there are any more comments that later after this meeting, that's very welcome. Otherwise, I think we will, as authors, we will come with a proposal for the next meeting. And the third comment here, and also along the same line, was the negotiation of, there are certain parameters being negotiated in the draft, and that's also flexibility, which we can have or we can take out in the interest of making the protocol simpler. And I don't have really a strong opinion here. I think we can exclude this negotiation. And I haven't asked my co-authors, so what do you think, Marco?
Just looking for the unmute button. It's not fully a negotiation. That information comes from the authorization server and is given to the ACE client based on a better early knowledge that the authorization server has of the resource server. And then the client would just stick to that as learned from the authorization server, while the resource server knows already. So it's not really a negotiation in band between the client and resource server. It's more some hard-coded configuration on the RS side that the authorization server passes on to the client.
But you could still omit that information.
Sure. That's the case already. Then you default for the value defined in the ad hoc draft.
Yeah. So the question is if we should allow. I mean, this is also adding options and making.
Right.
This is just one example here, so I don't think it has a major impact, but it's more like an attitude here. Should how much flexibility should we include?
Sure, and the same applies to the master salt size.
Of course, yeah.
Just as
so there
well.
are multiple parameters of this. Okay, so we've raised these questions now, and in the absence of other input, we will try to make a wise proposal here going forward. Then we have some new features for which is relevant not only for the ad hoc profile, but it's some of them are included in the ad hoc profile. And I'd like to mention them and ask for what people think, if we should just keep them in the ad hoc profile or make them generally available. So one is the alternative flow for access token provisioning. So instead of the client uploading the access token, there has been a request to allow the authorization server to upload it to the resource server. So this is the post/authorization info, and that's an unprotected request. So it really doesn't matter from the RS point of view where it comes from, because it will anyway need to handle the denial of service aspects and verify the access token. So this is described in the ad hoc profile, but may be generalized to the ACE framework. And that's something that we might want to split out of the document, if that's. I think that from the author's side, we think this is a good idea, because it certainly makes sense in other profiles as well. But we are happy to get input on that now or later. Any spontaneous input here? No? Okay, so there are two more. You still have the chance. So there is also the use of certificates as authentication credentials. The focus when ACE started as a working group was on IoT devices using symmetric keys and raw public keys. But as we see, there is also, for various good reasons, the use of certificates in IoT deployments. And that is something that we include now in the ad hoc profile, but it's not included in the DTLS and TLS profiles. So that's something we may want to generalize as well. And then we have a third type of generalization, or a general property, which is a request from a partner to use an access token for multiple devices. So for multiple RSs, I should say. So if you request you want to be able to check out an access token and use that in, say you have a number of identical devices that you want to access, and you don't want to have an access token for each of those devices, so for each of those RSs. And today the setting is that you provide the public key of that device in the RS-CNF claim. So that limits the validity of this access token to a single resource server. And that's a limitation. So what we'd like to do is to introduce a new claim to allow multiple RSs. And that there are different variants of that. Either we define a new one, say RS-CNF2, a new claim, which contains multiple public keys. Or we could have another setting where we define a trusted issuer of credentials. So we don't need to list all the devices that are trusted or that are recipients, we could list the CA, if you like. And then you verify that the device you're talking to is actually has a credential issued by this CA. Or some other assertion. It doesn't have to be a certificate. So that's an option which is not yet described anywhere. It's applicable to all the profiles which are using asymmetric keys. And one option is that we just include it in the ad hoc profile for the time being, or that we make it a separate draft. Any opinions on that point?
So how does the client know it's talking to the right device?
Well, what is the right device? So if you either you just provide the public keys of the right devices. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that what is the operation you want to do? Let's say that you want to operate on all the smoke detectors in the house, and you want to make a certain operation. You want to have the ability to configure something in all smoke detectors. Then the right device is a smoke detector of a certain.
Well, if the first smoke detector has gone rogue and is able to catch the traffic to all the other smoke detectors, then the smoke detector can pretend to be the other smoke detectors, and you won't succeed in talking to all of the smoke detectors.
Yes, that's a consideration. And you would know, since this is asymmetric, so you would still do individual authentication of each smoke detector. So you would be able to see if I'm talking to single or if I'm talking to multiple, and you would be able to identify those and to make a record out of these are the updated smoke detectors. So you would still, you would still be able to authenticate and pin, and there would still be the client would know who is at the other end and what operations have I performed on the other end. Okay,
so that's just my point, that this needs to be very clear how this is done in this case.
Yes. The list of public keys is probably simpler than this sub-bullet here where you just have a trusted issuer. You should probably have more than that. It should perhaps be more like an attribute assertion rather than a CA.
Well, adding indirection may make sense, but I think you have to come up with a use case where this actually makes sense to explain this. So
the use case was exactly what I mentioned here, that you have multiple identical devices that you need to configure.
Yeah, but how is it better to talk to what you call a CA? I would call it a key distribution center instead of the AS.
No, this is not better about. This is about the information that's provided from the AS. So the AS. So there are three options here. Either the AS is issuing one token per smoke detector.
Right.
That's option one. The second option is that it issues one single token, and then the RS info, the information about the RS, contains a list of each and every public key of the RSs. And then the third option, there is a single access token and a single key. It's the key of the trusted issuer. And then you don't need to know each and every one. You need to just trust that the issuer has issued certificates only to those smoke detectors or with some other provisioning, some other attribute. So you can be sure that this is a relevant smoke detector for me to configure.
Okay.
So there are these. Yeah,
maybe
sorry.
I don't understand what you mean when you say certificate. I think we need to be more careful when we use this term. So this would essentially be an authorization of the smoke detector to act as a smoke detector in your use case.
Yes. So let's say it's the manufacturer that has issued a credential. So there's a public key certificate of which is signed by the manufacturer, and that is the manufacturer public CA key included in the.
So what does this certificate say? That's really what we need to isolate here.
Well, in that case, it just says I'm produced by.
Yeah, which may be.
And that's probably not the right requirement. So that's why I was talking about attribute certificate.
Yeah. So I think that getting that right would be a useful thing.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, let me give you a better example. It's basically, let's say that that you have issued local certificates for each device by a certain CA, and then you might also have, when you do that, you have some in that certificate. There is some property that makes you identify this class of devices. Then you would have control over of which are allowed to be updated. But I think you have a good question there, Karsten. This needs to be clarified indeed. I think that the first two cases are probably straightforward. The third one was a little bit shot from the hip when I made the slides. So I need to think a little bit more, or we all. But then since you were bold enough to make a question, Karsten, I ask a question to you again. Should we make this part of the EDOC profile, or should we make this a general draft?
I don't see what's specific about ad hoc here.
No, none of the three features here is specific of any.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, this sounds like one or more additional documents that explain how they apply to ad hoc and the TLS profiles.
Yeah. For all of them, or for.
Well, it may not be possible to say in one sentence how they apply to all of them, but for each of them, yes.
Yes, of course. Okay.
There's also ACE framework general aspect about how to encode RSCNF2 that can be useful in future profiles that we can't even imagine now.
Yeah. That's also.
And before you touched certificates a lot about indicating the identity of a specific resource server, but if you want to use what we use today as COSI keys, I don't think you have a common COSI key parameter to indicate the identity of the other side. So probably we would need to look into how to extend that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so there's definitely more work to do here. Let's see where we go then. Thank you all for the feedback. Rikard, did you have a comment as well?
No, just a brief thing that I think definitely could be interesting to explore all three of these, and probably as a new document then.
Right. Would this be one new document, or would it be multiple new documents?
Maybe at least start it as one new one. Otherwise, it becomes a lot of new documents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this little bit like new features for new features for ACE.
Right, profile. And then describe new feature for ACE, and then describe how it impacts the individual profiles.
Yeah.
Could be a start at least.
Yeah. Okay. That's it from my side. We need to resolve the comments that we raised here from Christian, and we are strongly considering how to reduce the different alternatives in the EDOC OSCOR profile. We'd like to have a new version ready before the Yokohama meeting. And more comments are, of course, welcome. So I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we've reached the end of the meeting. So I think the meeting is adjourned, and see you next meeting.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.